quindi il calcio non è che giochi bene, giocare bene cosa vuol dire giocare bene? Io non l'ho ancora capito. Ho 52 anni, se qualcuno me lo spiega, io sono, con la mia umiltà mi metto lì e cerco di capire come si fa a giocare bene. Magari poi ci proverò. Però c'è un dato di fatto che, come dico sempre, nella vita, in tutti i ruoli ci sono le categorie. E dico sempre, ci sono giocatori che vincono le Champions, giocatori che non le vincono, o che perdono, giocatori che non vincono il campionato, giocatori che vincono il campionato, giocatori che retrocedono e giocatori che non retrocedono mai. Ci sono dirigenti che vincono, allenatori che vincono e allenatori che non vincono mai. Cazzo, se non vinci mai, cioè, ci sarà un motivo, Dio santo. Cavolo!
Cercavo una ragione che fosse solo la mia passione. Ho fatto la sappa life bianconera che mi tiene compagnia una stagione intera. Dalle 15 del pone inizia la trasmissione con Villani, Miguel, Kraft e Virmone e parte un coro come Juven, Juven, Juven. Juven, Juven, Juven. Juven, Juven, Juven. Juven, Juven, Juven. Fai la sappa per il direttore. Mi sveglio con l'editore alla colazione, nel pomeriggio aspetto il caffè. L'alta borghesia fornisce l'informazione, è un mercato poco internazionale come Miguel. Dopo pocarono su Discord, parte la rivoluzione. Al tormentone, era meglio tenersi sulle. Ma la vera vittoria è il 17 maggio, perché è il giorno della liberazione. Fai come Virmone. Juven, Juven, Juven. 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 Ho trovato la mia ragione, ho fatto la sappa life bianconera che dà sfogo alla mia passione. È il mio appuntamento dalle 15 fino a sera, con Milani che conduce tra capisce e tra la si dispera. A Lane abbassiamo la luce. Juven, 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 Juven. Fai la sappa per il direttore. Ho trovato la mia ragione, ho fatto la sappa life bianconera che dà sfogo alla mia passione, è il mio appuntamento dalle 15 fino a sera. Scegli la sincera, a Lane abbassiamo la luce. E parte un coro come Juven, Juven, Juven. Juven, Juven, Juven. Juven, Juven, Juven. Juven, Juven, Juven. Juven, Juven, Juven.
Buon pomeriggio a tutti. Oggi è sabato 31 maggio 2025. Non dovremmo in realtà essere in onda perché c'è già una live in programma oggi, che è quella della reaction alla finale di UEFA Champions League tra Inter e Paris Saint-Germain. Però nella notte ho studiato, voi vi direte cosa hai studiato? Ho studiato il profilo di Damien Comolli guardandomi un contenuto che secondo me è molto molto interessante. Questa non sarà una live come le altre, non ci sarà grosso dibattito, almeno verremo coadiuvati da questo contenuto, secondo me molto interessante, che ci verrà a supporto nel capire chi è veramente l'ex presidente del Tolosa, Damien Comolli. Vi dico subito una cosa, dato che è una live di approfondimento su Damien Comolli, ripeto, bravo, con questo video di un'ora, e guarderemo questo video qui, vi dico subito che non accetto baruffe in chat o commenti stupidi, subito, metto in chiaro le cose, e che l'intervista è in lingua inglese, metteremo i sottotitoli di YouTube, cercheremo, credo che entrerà anche Laudante, di darvi una mano se ci saranno problemi di traduzione, ma è un contenuto molto molto interessante. Io ogni tanto magari stopperò il video per cercare di far capire se qualche concetto non sia chiaro a tutti. Per quello che posso fare, chiaramente, non faccio il traduttore di professione. So bene l'inglese, ma non è che sono, ripeto, un traduttore. Detto ciò, ripeto ancora, perché voglio fare questa cosa? Non tanto per vendervi, come dire, sogni, come direbbe Roberto Carlino, ma nemmeno solide realtà, ma per capire noi, per conoscere noi, chi ci stiamo mettendo in casa. Che però cosa vuol dire? Cosa intendo fare? Intendo appunto non dire la Juventus ha preso il fenomeno dei direttori generali, perché non lo so. Vi prenderei in giro a dire è il fenomeno dei direttori generali. Dall'altra parte non voglio nemmeno che si dica il male del calcio sono gli algoritmi, l'intelligenza artificiale e tutta la tecnologia. Per me sono due visioni stupide entrambi, e io non dico che sto nel mezzo a fare il democristiano, perché non lo sono. A me piace sempre prendere posizione nella vita in tutto, ma conoscere per deliberare, dicevano i radicali una volta. Ecco, io voglio conoscere e deliberare insieme a voi. Vi prego di, ripeto, essere civili nel corso di questa intervista che guarderemo e di, come dire, non essere brutali nei commenti. Tra poco arriva Laudante, benissimo. Di non essere brutali nei commenti, perché noi vogliamo capire, non vogliamo educare, capire noi in primis e farci un'idea, se è possibile. Se poi invece il dibattito deve essere rutti e scoregge, a me non piacciono né i rutti né le scoregge, almeno non in pubblico. In privato poi si può ruttare, si può anche scoreggiare. Va bene? Salutiamo i ragazzi in chat, c'è una sub, grazie mille, grazie. Grazie a Simfa, 25 mesi con Amazon Prime, grazie di cuore. Salutiamo. Nel frattempo che arriva Laudante. Sim, appunto, grazie. Ciao Ciano, Semica, V89, vogliamo capire, benissimo. Sì, caffè live reaction stasera. Ciao Anto, ciao Roxas, ciao Carmelo, ciao Andreina, Eginio. Chi è Damien quello lì? Va bene. Portaci l'allenatore. Si parla sempre più di Marco Silva, comunque, ve lo devo dire. Anche lì magari sarà un'altra live a farci capire se sarà lui, chi è Marco Silva. Spero che ci faccia vedere l'intervista contenuto bloccato in Francia. Sì, sarà quella lì, esattamente. Ciao Debios, ciao Buzzer, ciao il Quinto Tutto ciao Sky, ciao Ski, ciao Max Paua, ciao Enrico, ciao Camille Santiac, ciao a chi, ad Antonio, già Doctor. Il carro Pioli non sarà Pioli l'allenatore, secondo me, ragazzi, non sarà Pioli. Poi, se l'algoritmo dice Pioli, beccamo se Pioli. Ciao a Peruzzi, ci ritroviamo come allenatore il sosia di Andrew Scott, il prete della serie di Fleabag, che io non conosco. Poi, chi c'è? C'è Davius, ciao. No, non ci ha sfanculato nessuno. L'Inter che alza la quarta è molto possibile. Ciao Dani, ciao Juventao. Seguo 26 anni, la seguo io quando ho 7-8 anni, non avevo mai visto. Beh, allora sei molto giovane, va detto. Ciao GFGF, ciao Sedio. Mi fido di questo come lì. L'importante è che venga lasciato lavorare in pace. Secondo me questa è la cosa, è la chiave, ragazzi. Questa è la chiave. Ciao da Kisem, ciao a chi. Vediamo ancora chi salutare. Lombardo, il Nocca, che tristezza, ma non essere triste, che la vita va avanti. Cosa ne pensi del nome del... penso che non sappiamo niente. Penso che non sappiamo niente. Questo penso. È che verrà scelto un nome che magari non conosciamo nemmeno e che nemmeno pensavamo che potesse allenare la Juve. Quindi aspettiamoci di tutto. Mi sembra che nel video non ci siano i sottotitoli in italiano. No, infatti sono in inglese. Ripeto, cercherò di aiutarvi per quanto mi è possibile. Ripeto, non sono un traduttore, ok? Ciao Forza Juve, ciao Marchisce, ciao Quad. Se l'argomento dice Tiago, Tiac. Ciao Quad, ciao Ick Williams. Ma che cazzo di commento è questo? Ma porca troia. Va bene. Ciao Sadio, ciao Kevin, ciao Alessio Bianconero. Si diceva la stessa cosa di Marotta nel 2010 solo perché il suo massimo era la Samp, ma la metodologia di lavoro sono completamente diverse, va detto. Non è un dirigente tradizionale. Mi verrebbe da dire che col calcio italiano Monsieur Comolli non c'entra niente, ok? E infatti la domanda che ci dobbiamo fare è: ma come cazzo è finito alla Juve? Soprattutto perché è stata una scelta in prima persona di John Elkann. Questa non è una scelta di Calvo e di Scanavino come Giuntoli. Giuntoli è stato preso chiaramente sotto mandato della proprietà nel ridisegnare l'area sport da Calvo e da Scanavino. Questa è una scelta di John Elkann e da quanto mi risulta, io non so nemmeno se le posso dire queste cose, il dossier Juventus è nelle mani di Messie Comolli da un anno. Ok, il dossier Juventus è nelle mani di Messie Comolli non da ieri, ma da un anno. Il dossier Juventus. Quindi la scelta non è stata fatta in 2 giorni, ok? Da quello che mi risulta. Ed è una roba forte, lo so che è una roba forte, ma quello che mi è stato detto è che il dossier Juventus sta nelle mani di questo signore che fino a ieri era presidente, non era era un presidente di una squadra di Ligan e azionista di una squadra di Ligan. Quindi non stiamo andando a prendere, ripeto, uno che diciamo, eccoci qui, non è andata così, da quello che mi risulta. Anche questo non vuol dire che sia il fenomeno dei dirigenti, perché non lo so, perché non lo conosco bene, ma non è una cosa così improvvisata. Ripeto, non vi devo vendere nulla io voglio capire assieme a voi. Cerco la vostra comprensione, d'accordo? L'unica cosa che vi posso chiedere, voglio marchettare, che merda che sono, è se questo contenuto vi piace. Io ho fatto anche un altro contenuto per Instagram, mettete il follow al mio profilo Instagram adesso, in questo preciso istante, @fabvillani_ su Instagram. Devo arrivare a 1000 entro l'inizio dell'estate. È una mia scommessa che mi sono fatto tra me e me stesso. @villani_ su Instagram. Non ho te lo fai Instagram, te lo fai per seguire il direttore, te lo fai Instagram, santa miseria. Quindi mi raccomando, seguitemi e seguite anche LB su Twitch, eccetera. Lei è un maiale, dottor Eginio, lei è un grande maiale, va bene. Detto ciò, leggiamo ancora nel frattempo che aspettiamo Antonio. Hai visto come ha ripreso un certo elemento di X che ci segue sempre con l'immagine di Bud Spencer all'intervista di Comolli? Manco a capire l'italiano. Non ho visto nulla, vedo la sub e sono contento, grazie mille. 970, fai 8 mesi con Amazon Prime. La sub numero 470 di questo mese. A questo punto io vorrei andare a 500 già oggi, ma è molto difficile, chiaramente ne mancano 30. Ma faremo anche la live reaction della finale di Champions e quindi magari con 2 live ci arriviamo. Bravo, mettimi il follow subito su Instagram, subito, mettetemi il follow. Dammi un minuto e ti seguo col mio secondo profilo Instagram che... Madonna, ma siete vergognosi, siete imbarazzanti. Non sarà uno scemo, certo di SDG presidente non sarà un fenomeno, ma nemmeno un cretino, ok? Bravo Chris. E se Aldo sia Juve sulla scrivania da un anno, vuol dire che ha avallato anche lui i tentativi per Conte e Gasperini? Non te lo so dire. Quello che ti so dire è che le chiamate, soprattutto per Conte, sono state fatte da Chiellini e quella di ieri è stata fatta da Chiellini per Gasperini. Sempre Ini finisce la situazione. Quindi non so dirti però se ha avallato i tentativi per Conte, non te lo so dire. Quello che ti so dire è che mi risulta è che il dossier Juve è sulla scrivania di questo Comolli da un anno. o da poco meno di un anno. Ecco, questa è la situazione, ragazzi, ok? Non mi risulta che sia di Chiellini la chiamata, ma non è per addossare le colpe, perché era già troppo tardi. Anche perché quello che mi risulta è che la Roma parla con Gasperini da gennaio, che il primo allenatore che voleva Claudio Ranieri era Gasperini, e che Ranieri ha bleffato perfettamente e alla fine Gasperini ha mantenuto la parola, ok? Siamo arrivati molto in ritardo, molto in ritardo, questo mi risulta. Leggiamo ancora, Romeo mi pare che abbia detto che è stato Comolli, non lo so raga, poi a Romeo risulta Comolli, va bene, Comolli o Comolli, scusate. Aspetto ancora un po' il laudante, leggiamo. Sono curioso di sapere se ha preso in mano il dossier Juventus da inizio. Non te lo so dire. Io sarò sincero, la voglia di seguire la Juve per la stagione 25-26 è la stessa del triennio 21-24, con la differenza che in quella circostanza seguivo per sperare nel fallimento, adesso ho solo disinteresse. Vediamo. Fabio, per te un profilo come Xavi, come lo vedi? Non dipende da dipende dall'algoritmo, e questo è il punto, dipende dall'algoritmo. Cosa dice l'algoritmo? Non lo so. Ciao Alex Bianconero, buongiorno, siamo alla frutta ma sono sempre fiducioso. Questo è vero, e il padrino di Comolli è Arsène Wenger dal punto di vista ideologico sportivo, gli ha dato lui una carriera, ragazzi, e vi parlo del Wenger dell'Arsenal primi anni 2000 che vinceva. L'altra cosa che posso dirvi è che molti giocatori scoperti da Comolli sono diventate star internazionali, cioè non è ripeto, non vi sto vendendo un sogno, ma non è un cretino, è uno che dentro nel mondo del calcio da 30 anni. Detto ciò, c'è il laudante e gli diamo il buon pomeriggio. Ciao.
Buon pomeriggio ragazzi, come state?
Come stai? Tutto bene, tutto bene.
Bene, stavo vedendo
la quarta dell'Inter, tutto bene.
No, vabbè, quello lasciamo stare, io faccio altro stasera.
Un giocatore 1, Luka Modric 1, Luis Suarez 2, Andy Carroll, Jordan Henderson, Dimitri Berbatov, ce ne sono parecchi. È uno che per esempio ha sviluppato, si può dire così, il talento di Thierry Henry al Monaco.
Sì.
Quindi, ragazzi, non è un cretino, ti ripeto, cioè non è Antonio, anche lui sta studiando questo profilo di Comolli, non è uno che non ha mai lavorato nel calcio, anzi è nato nel calcio. Questo è quello che possiamo
Lui
dire.
a 18 anni ha lasciato il calcio giocato, perché ha giocato con
anche
Petit.
di meno mi risulta a me, anche di meno.
Sì, ha giocato con Petit e Thuram, Lilian proprio, e
Sì.
ha detto no, io non sono a livello loro e quindi lasciamo stare.
Perfetto, questo ha scritto Romeo. Dice Romeo, ma sul forum di VS ha scritto: l'errore che state commentando qui in molti è dare per scontato che Comolli avesse contato Gasp per offrirgli automaticamente la panchina. A me questa roba non risulta. A me risulta che nelle telefonate da parte di Comolli ci fosse l'intenzione di conoscere Gasperini. Questo già ci sta e lo scopriremo perché, ripeto, lui fa delle interviste non è che ti dà la panchina, ti fa un'intervista sul profilo psicologico, sul profilo motivazionale. Ripeto, ma vale la pena guardare.
Assolutamente sì, vale tanto.
Quindi portate pazienza se siete curiosi, altrimenti ragazzi, se volete, ripeto, rutti e scoregge, oggi non è la live per voi, ve lo dico subito. Quindi sarà un contenuto che spero che sia interessante e ce lo vediamo insieme. È un podcast, il podcast di Excellent Leadership Podcast, andato in onda 8 mesi fa, ed è un'intervista di un'ora a questo dirigente. Lui è il conduttore del podcast, diciamo il Fabio Villani, ecco, dei podcast sull'eccellenza sportiva. E dall'altra parte ci sarà il Monsieur Comolli. Siamo pronti? Andiamo?
Sì.
Antonio, dammi il via, prego.
Io ci sono.
Greatest careers in sport. You've gotten to work for major clubs in a variety of different markets. Mm-hmm. Rather than me tell you your story, tell me your story, because I would love to hear how did this all begin to get where you are today. Take us back.
Whoa. I think it started with my passion for football.
Li puoi tradurre, Fabio?
Apart from my
questo
kids,
immagino che si possa capire, dai.
My reason to live, you know, I wake up every morning.
Comunque li vogliono in italiano.
Ma in italiano mi sa che non c'è, ragazzi. In italiano non c'è.
Vai in impostazioni.
Sottotitoli inglese. Ragazzi, inglese.
Giù.
Traduzione automatica in italiano?
Sì.
Oh, speriamo, aspetta.
Figli italiano.
Però non so come possano venire, ragazzi,
No, vengono abbastanza bene. Ma poi potevo tradurre pure io simultaneamente.
Since I was 3 or 4 years old.
That early?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Easy. Every kid that grows up is a football fan. You know, I wanted to be a player, a professional player. So I went all through the ranks and then ended up playing for Monaco Academy.
How old were you?
I was 17, 18. And then quickly realized I was not doing the same sports than the likes of Lilian Thuram or Emmanuel Petit. Emmanuel Petit is 1 year older than me, and Lilian Thuram is 2 years younger than me. And watching them play in Monaco youth, I'm thinking those guys are made differently than me. So I realized...
But to just qualify for that level meant that you must have been an outstanding player.
I was
but there was another level.
Yeah, definitely. And then I thought to myself, okay, I need to stay in football because it's my life, but what can I do to stay in football? And then I think 18, 19, I started
un attimo risolvo la questione. Risolvo.
Because I thought if I want to stay in football, then I can only be a coach or fitness coach or something like this. So I was starting to get my coaching badges.
It's probably one of the only roles you knew existed at that time too. I don't think a lot of 16-year-olds know about sponsorship sales or hospitality or
absolutely. And I just wanted to be on the pitch every day. If I couldn't do it as a player,
the pitch chiaramente vedete non è la spiaggia, è sul campo, ragazzi. La traduzione in italiano per me fa cacare, però volete in italiano, mettiamola in inglese. Anto, se traduce pitch spiaggia, beach,
vabbè, no, ci fermiamo noi a dire lì è il campo.
I was a youth coach, actually. My only ambition was to be a youth coach in Monaco's academy. That was my dream job. And then I got my full badge. The first one is the equivalent today, probably UEFA A or UEFA B. It goes back a long time. So.
UEFA
and then kindly the club paid for my license. I didn't even have a driving license, so my mum was driving me to the coaching license to get the coaching license. All the other guys were 35, 40, 50. They were laughing. And I got this. And then I went to see the chairman of Monaco. I said, I like to coach the under-8s or under-9s or the B or C teams of the under-8s or under-9s. He said, great. Thank you very much for your commitment. He said, come back on the 1st of August. We'll give you a team. Turn up on the 1st of August, 92. And they say, okay, we have an issue. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm done there. I don't even they forgot about me. He said, we just fired the under-16 coach from the academy, and you are taking over for a month by the time we find someone. But you cannot play anymore. You have to stop your career. I said, well, that's probably good for football. So I'm happily stopped my career. And then I stayed 4 years.
And at that time, would you have viewed U16 as a more prestigious job than U9?
Of course. Well, in year 2, I had the opportunity to coach Thierry Henry a few times. So you can, or year 3, so you can imagine. It was a very prestigious job. And I stayed 4 years. And then a few months later, they called me back and said, actually, we need to give you, on top of the under-16, the 3 under-10 teams, because we have also an issue with the coach. And that's how I started, coaching 7 to 8 training sessions a week, 3 to 4 games per weekend. It was absolutely incredible. And at the time, a youth coach was properly a one-man band.
Yeah.
So I was scouting at times. I was fitness coach. I was goalkeeper coach. And then at some point I did proper once a week on Wednesday afternoon goalkeeper coaching training sessions. So I was taking the goalkeepers of 3 or 4 different age groups and doing training sessions as well. And I've learned so much. It was
preparatore dei portieri, fitness, allenatore, ragazzi, tanta roba, voglio dire.
Gli hanno fatto fare tutto da piccolo, poi ci saranno anche le altre cose.
It was incredible. So I started as a coach.
Damien, before you move on from there, just because not everybody who listens to this will know, how much of a U10 coach is winning as 9 and 10-year-old boys versus preparing them to win as 16, 18, 22-year-old men? Because I'm sure there's a lot of pressure to try to win in the existing age category if you're a coach. But if you're playing in the existing age category, maybe you're prioritizing kids who might be more athletically developed at 9 years old, even if they don't have as high of potential. So what is that balance and tension?
I think the
landscape... Una domanda straordinaria del conduttore. Cioè gli sta chiedendo, quando tu alleni i ragazzini, qual è il confine tra prepararli per vincere e fare tu carriera, vincere le partite, e quindi magari quelli che sono sviluppati fisicamente, io no, quanti ne ho visti allenatori fa così, anche in altri sport, e quindi sviluppare il talento di giocatori magari meglio piazzati fisicamente perché vuoi vincere la partita, e quanto invece vuoi lavorare su giocatori per prepararli a un futuro domani e svilupparli tecnicamente, non solo sulle basi fisiche. Vediamo come risponde.
Okay, but changed so much from 30 plus years ago to what we are doing now in clubs. So we are talking about biobanding now. We do
fermo un
biobanding in
attimo,
Toulouse.
Fabio.
Yeah, so
Sì, prego.
Allora, qui non c'è scritto bene, però si parla di biobanding. È una tecnica che si utilizza nello sport in generale per associare gli atleti al loro profilo biologico di appartenenza. Faccio un esempio. Lamine Yamal, anche se ha 16 anni, col biobanding viene associato a quelli dell'età superiore alla sua, ma che hanno più o meno lo stesso profilo fisiologico, praticamente, cioè lo stesso fisico. È una cosa che viene fatta proprio per creare delle categorie, non è analisi antropologica, nulla di stupido.
Ciao Miguel.
Ciao Miguel, stupido non è lui ovviamente, ma si fa in modo di mettere non tanto le categorie con i pari età, ma le categorie di fisico di giocatori che possono praticamente giocare meglio assieme. Non ha senso mettere un freak fisico in mezzo a quelli che hanno semplicemente la sua stessa età all'anagrafe. Quindi praticamente è un modo di tenere le categorie di età sempre che rispondono fondamentalmente alla loro base. Poi ci sono i limiti di campionato e tutto quanto, dove comunque devi metterli a 14 anni, ma se io posso far fare uno step a un 14enne con i 17enni perché già è formato, va direttamente con quelli. Quindi questa è la definizione di biobanding ed è una cosa che si fa, diciamo, in epoca recente, prima non si faceva. Possiamo andare avanti.
And it's something we had no idea what it was at the time. I remember the under 17, so I was assistant coach with the under 17s as well in Monaco. The strategy, the tactics was, okay, we defend deep as soon as we get the hold of the ball, we play long to Thierry Henry in the space and he's going to score a goal. He scored 17 2 seasons. So there was a lot less aspect.
He was that much of a star.
It was incredible. And he was so quick and he was so strong and so powerful that he was dominating that league. Like if he was playing against under 12s and he was 16, 17. So yes, there was not all the approach that we've been having in youth football, youth soccer in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years is so different from what we used to do at the time. And nowadays it's a lot more focused on developing players rather than developing teams to win at youth level. But the landscape has just changed, 30 years ago and today is just different.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. So you had this foundation as a coach and then I interrupt you, so keep going.
So then I had an opportunity to go and coach in Japan. So I coached the under 18s in Nagasaki, which was an amazing experience. There is a dotted line there, and the dotted line the dotted line for me to Arsène Wenger, because Arsène was the head coach, the manager of Monaco at the time. And I took advice from him, and when I started coaching, and when I was a player as well, not with him but underneath in the academy. He leaves Monaco, goes in Japan for Nagoya Grand Crusade, and then I've got this opportunity to go and coach in Japan. So I'm calling him and say, "What should I do?" He said, "Look, it's a great place. You should come. It's a really great place." So I signed my contract, about to fly to Japan, and he signs for Arsenal. As a manager, I'm like, what's going on here? I'm supposed to come and meet you, and you come back to Europe. So that was frustrating and funny at the same time. But I spent a year in Japan, which was an incredible experience.
I bet. How old are you at this time?
It was in 95. I was 24, 23 and a half, 24.
Yeah. You're still a kid. You feel like an adult, but you're still a kid. How life-shaping.
But on a 5 years coaching experience already in one of the best academy in Europe. Yeah. So yes, I was very young, but still a little bit of experience at the time in terms of coaching, not in life. So being there, it was a great experience to work with Japanese players. When I got there, we were playing out of a calendar year. One year we played 120 games. So we play Saturday, Sunday with the same players every weekend.
Really?
Training sessions of 4 hours every afternoon.
And that was just culture.
Yeah, it was culture. And in the province of Nagasaki, which is one of the hottest places in Japan, so it was 4 hours in the sun, in 100% humidity, and everybody was happy and smiling, and they were asking for more, and I had to hide balls at some time. The footballs, I had to hide them, otherwise they would have trained for 6 hours or 7 hours. So it was great experience. It's the biggest culture shock I've ever experienced in my life. So even, if I go to, thankfully in that job, I traveled the world in all of my jobs, and the only place where I really had a culture shock was in Japan, more than if I go in South America, Africa, whatever. But Japan is really different, and I loved being there. I really did.
We just came back from 17 days in Japan as a family. Okay. We loved it. My kids, I think they'll see the world differently from it, because it is a different world in many respects. Just some of the values of society. You do what's best for society versus what's best for yourself, so to speak. It was probably interesting elements in coaching too. You probably had a lot of kids who were fine with playing their role versus being the superstar, because culturally that often takes place.
Correct. But the downside to that is difficult to, and I remember I'm speaking about it with Eddie Jones many times, the former England coach, rugby coach, in Japan. He's half Japanese, half Australian, and I think he's back in Japan now. The downside of that is it's difficult to develop creativity with Japanese players, because it's difficult to empower them. It's difficult to tell them, you have freedom on the pitch. You have the freedom to express your talent. It's not a society that is used to that. And I remember very well my uncle and my aunt visiting me at the time. So he was 96. And I was telling them, I can feel there's something not right in the Japanese society, and I think it's going to decline in terms of economical power, in terms of other countries are moving at a very fast pace, and I didn't feel it was the case for Japan. And 30 years ago, we are in a situation where it's actually happening. So there is a lot of upsides, but there is some downside in coaching Japanese players, which is a shame. But we're starting to see Japanese players coming to Europe who are very talented and can express their creativity, but they leave the country early. I think that's a big thing.
That's it. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So anyway, so Arsene signs for Arsenal as a manager, and then I come at the...
Ma amici in chat, state capendo quello che sta dicendo? Se avete delle difficoltà e qualcosa non vi arriva, ci pensiamo io e Antonio.
Sì.
No, spero che sia fruibile il contenuto, ecco, non voglio mettere in difficoltà, tutto chiaro, no? Perfetto.
No, ma comunque ci sono dei punti salienti che li vediamo anche sotto, cioè adesso si sta parlando effettivamente di come è andata la sua esperienza in Giappone, che è stata molto divertente perché lui ha seguito Wenger e Wenger se n'è andato, quindi in pratica lui si è trovato in Giappone un anno a caso quasi, però è una persona comunque molto intelligente, molto reattiva alle differenze, e si è reso conto, lui stava al Nagoya Grampus, e si è reso conto effettivamente di come fosse fatto. Ora vi faccio, diciamo, uno step nel futuro, poi ritorniamo col video. Lui comunque ha avuto una formazione in vari rami del calcio, però la figura che lui apprezza di più su tutte, ed è il centro proprio del suo credo, arrivato alla maturità che ha a quest'età, è l'osservatore calcistico. Cioè, per lui l'osservatore è il primo uomo nel calcio.
Facciamolo dire a lui, altrimenti dura tantissimo, non ce la facciamo.
Sì, va bene.
Quindi andiamo.
The end of my first year of my contract, I had a 3 years contract. So I came to see him in London. I said, what should I do? He said, come to join me at Arsenal. I said, to do what? He said, I don't know yet, but just come here. So I leave Japan, goes to see him. I said, what am I supposed to do? He said, I don't know, we'll find out. And then he introduced me to the chief scout of Arsenal at the time, was really fed up with traveling to France every weekend because Arsene was sending him to watch players in France. So Arsene said, look, work with Damien in Monaco, and he could be our scout in France. And that's how I started scouting. So I started as a local French scout, and then expanded. At the end of the first year, I became European scout. stayed 7 years and traveled the world and went to South America, Africa, Asia, everywhere you can think of, Russia, Ukraine, like an international scout in a top Premier League club. The first few years were frustrating because I still wanted to coach. And my goal was always to be a coach. But after a few years, Arsene said, just I'm fed up with you telling me you're not happy with being a scout. Just do your job and shut up. So I did my job and shut up. And then after 2 or 3 years, I started to get calls from people or saying, would you be interested being a sporting director or a chief scout first, and then head of recruitment, chief scout at the time, and then become a sporting director? I had no idea what a sporting director should be doing or was doing. And every time I had those calls, Arsene used to tell me, no, it's not the time. It's not the right time. You stay here, you stay until the day I got the call. And I told him, said, this time I can't say no. It was Saint-Etienne. So at 32, I think I was 32, I became sporting director at Saint-Etienne, which was my first executive job. And then from then I was headhunted by Nolan Partners to go to Spurs as a sporting director. Then I was back to Saint-Etienne, then was a director of football at Liverpool, director of football at Fenerbahce. And then the transition was, I never planned to be a chairman of a club. I never planned to be the chairman of the club of the 4th biggest city in France. Never, ever. And I had this opportunity just during COVID, actually in 2020. And I took it, and it's been an incredible journey. But, I've done, as I said, if I summarize, I've been a scout, I've been a director, I've been a coach, I've been a fitness coach. And now I'm at the tip of the pyramid. I'm the chairman of a club. And it's been incredible.
I love that journey. Thank you. Damien, there's not a lot of people with a similar story to yours, coaching to sporting director to chairman. That's a really uncommon story. But it's obviously a very relevant story. How do you feel coaching trained you for sporting director? And then from there, how sporting director empowered you to be a successful chairman?
I'm not sure there is a link, and yet I'm sure there are plenty of links. The transition from coaching to scouting was almost none, and I struggled at the beginning. I remember having a conversation when I was at Arsenal. I say, the most important person in the club is a coach or youth coach because he developed the players. And then people always say, it's not, it's the scout, because the scout, if the scouts are not good, the recruitment is not good, then you can have the best coach in the world. It won't develop.
You get the wrong players.
You get the wrong players. So it took me a while to understand how important recruitment was. And when I grew up idolizing Arsene and other coaches such as Saki and others, and Cruyff, and thinking they are the most important people. Well, they are, but providing you give them the raw material at the beginning. So the coaching to scouting was not really there was no real link or transition. From scouting to sporting director, when I was recruited by Saint-Etienne and then my Spurs, what they like a lot was in my profile was the recruitment bit, because I was known at the time, I hope I don't sound too arrogant, but I was known at the time for the recruitment success that we had at Arsenal. And rightly or wrongly, I was associated to that success. So that's what attracted those clubs to myself. But then after that, you have to grow into something much bigger, because when you were at Spurs football operations or Liverpool football operations, they are big operations. So if you are only a scout or you stick with your recruitment ability of players, then you miss out on all the rest. And then I grew into each job, actually. I think what I did, if the only credit I can give to myself, is I've always been very, very curious. So I never thought, okay, I'm only a scout and I don't look at what's going on outside. I remember at Monaco, I used to sneak into the room and listen to Arsene Wenger press conferences to see how he was managing the press. Or when I was at Arsenal, I used to ask tens of questions to David Dean. How did you get the Nike contract signed?
Alle conferenze stampa per vedere le domande di Marco Venditti, signora mia Calcio News, sarà divertente.
How did you use the money? The first Nike contract Arsenal signed, they took the money, built a new stand. So why did you do this? And I've always been very curious, whether it's about medical aspect or fitness or psychology or business, or commercial, sponsorship. press, relation with media. And because I had the incredible privilege of growing up into football, being nurtured by the likes of David Dean, Arsene Wenger and others, then I learned very quickly, how to develop. So I think that's how I got kind of, I'm not sure if I'm a full package, but a package decent enough to be able to end up in the job I'm in now.
Is curiosity a muscle that you're born with or one that you develop?
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm still very curious. I'm still ask a lot of questions. If I'm into a banker or politician, I ask questions, or an artist or a chef, I ask questions. So I still have it, and it's kind of become a natural habit because I think it's the only way to keep learning and to keep improving. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I've got this opportunity to ask questions to this person, and I cannot miss the opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing process. And maybe I had it, but I make sure I still have it, even now I'm 52.
Yeah, I think it's something that we have to practice, because there's some people who are curious and they don't practice it. And I see that in interviewing all day, every day. There's sometimes somebody gives an answer and everybody is on the edge of their seat going, probe on that more. And the interviewer might have missed it, not ever seen it, right? Or they didn't feel comfortable asking the probe. And to continue building that. And a lot of the most talented executives, regardless of industry, to your point, they're curious. They want to know how the machine works, and they want to know how other machines work, because they can bring that learning into their own space and into their sector. So as a sporting leader, you're going to the revenue team and the marketing team and asking them questions. What a great piece of advice for listeners to say, don't just stay in your lane, get to know others in other departments.
Yeah, it's exactly this. I think you can, as you're totally right, at some point you can fall into some sort of laziness. We say, okay, why should I go to that meeting? Why should I go to this conference? Why should I listen to this podcast? Why should I read that book? Well, because it's gonna fulfill your thirst for learning. And it's going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a better individual, a better executive at the end of the day. So it's an exercise that is tiring. The curiosity, I will say, at some point it can be tiring, but it's got to be nonstop.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You were talking earlier about needing to scout the best people. Otherwise, you're developing the wrong people. There's a great book. It's called Work Rules. Laszlo Bock wrote it. He used to be vice president or head of HR at Google, and they had just done a lot of studies of their own internal population on that same topic. And what they saw was when they hired someone who was already an A or A+, that person worked to develop themselves in their free time all the time. And if they ever said to that person, we're going to send you to this academic program or to this executive coaching, that person would say, thank you, I'm overjoyed by this. But if they had a B- player and said, we want to send you to this coaching or this development, that person usually didn't like it. They were almost annoyed that their boss is saying they need to improve, and they didn't fully apply themselves. And so Laszlo and his team looked at that in sport and said, as we look at sport, baseball in particular, because people stay in the same roles, they're the pitcher's the pitcher, first baseman's first baseman, and the data were overwhelmingly in favor of the team that spends the most, wins the most over the course of a very long data set. Like a lot of sport, there usually is some level of correlation between what a player costs versus the value they bring. The business world, that's harder, because just because GE pays someone something doesn't mean that that's what they're worth to the market as a whole. So they just dedicated all of their HR resources into saying, we need to find the best people. The talent and development then becomes easier, and it enables our coaches internally. So it's a great book if you haven't read it. It's probably one of my favorite. I might be biased because I'm a recruiter that somebody finally wrote a recruiting book, but it applies in so many different areas of business.
Of course.
Your current role today, what are the values of Toulouse, and how do you make sure that's infused through the entire organization?
It's difficult for me to talk about the values because we try to keep them in-house, but I will give you a few. So if I can, I'd like to start from the beginning, because what we did when we arrived at the club, so we arrived at a club that's won one game in 18 months, got relegated during COVID, everyone and for 5 or 6 years trying to avoid relegation until it got relegated. And our thought actually that we could change the culture, keeping the same people, but interviewing everyone, I quickly realized that the losing part of it was so much ingrained into the club that there was no way we could change the culture or transform the culture with the same people. We changed a lot more than what we thought, and we were very, very adamant. So we are probably one of the only clubs in Europe and in France, certainly in France and in Europe, we've got a head of strategy and culture. And the role of this person, obviously, is to identify what the culture was, or help transform the culture, and then sustain the culture. And what we did, we got the whole of the staff together, and we say, what does Toulouse Football Club mean for you? There was a paperboard on each table, a group of 10, 8 or 10, one speaker per table. And then I said, when you're done, you speak, the speaker will present to us. And what was incredible is all the negativity that came out of this. So one group said, Toulouse equals to lose in 2 words. In English, they use the English word. We are the FC Portal Cabin, because the offices of the coaching staff are in Portal Cabin. We are losers. We are underachievers. But at the same time, what came out is we are proud of the color of the shirt is purple. The viola is purple. Very unique. We are proud because we have a very good academy. We are proud because of the city we represent, which is the absolutely magnificent city. So we took that, we thought, okay, we have a lot of work to do. And we spent, I think, 3 or 4 months with our head of strategy, identifying the positives and the negatives that came out of all those kind of town hall meetings. And we grouped them. We did a lot of work on them. And then we presented back to the whole. We said, okay, this is what you told us. Those are the positives. Those are the negatives. And what you are telling us is that you want to create a high performance environment. You want to have the right people in the right place. You want to recruit good people. You want to start winning, and you want to be proud again of working for this football club. So where we are is not great. Where we want to go, it looks very nice. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but you are going to tell us how we get there. We are going to guide you, support you, help you, but we are not telling you. You have to tell us. And we wanted the transformation of culture to be totally bottom up. We had no influence over it as a management, no influence. So we created more groups by department. So there were finance, pay, account, academy, etc. And we said, what do you want to work on? So we want to work on this, on that. We created 54 immediate projects that we could do within a week or a day or tomorrow or whatever. Then we created structural project, long-term project, and physiological project. And the whole club is involved in those.
I love that.
We just finished in February. We finished the 54 project. All of them are being delivered. And some of the structuring projects, like building a new training facility for the first team, we started on the 1st of January. We're investing 20 million euros on a new training facility just for the first team, only for the first team. Physiological project. How do we build a winning culture? And that's ongoing, as you can imagine.
Right.
And there is so much going on into that. During this process, we said we do not want to define values because as a club, we are not ready to have values. We didn't know where we stood 4 years ago when we bought the club in second division. So we said we're not ready to create those values. And then at some point during last season, just to give you the story. So on the 1st of September 2020, we are 19th in League 2, which is the equivalent of championship. So second tier. On the 1st of September 2020, on the 29th of April 23, we win the FA Cup. We are in Europe. In the meantime, we win promotion. We are champion of the championship. So in the space of less than 3 years, we go from bottom of the championship to Europe and winning major trophy in the Big 5 leagues. And that accelerated the process of our cultural transformation. And because we change people as well. We changed players, we changed coaches, we created a new executive team, etc., etc. And that accelerated the process to a point where people came to see our head of strategy and culture and say, actually, we are ready to define our values. Why are you slowing us down? So, okay, that's nice to hear. So we got all the people together again in a room and say, okay, if you have to define the values of Toulouse Football Club, what would that be? And we did the same exercise. And we got, I don't know how many words and sentences and values from those people. We spent 3 or 4 months putting them together, and then we presented back to them. So those are going to be the values of Toulouse Football Club. We are unique because we have a purple jersey, and there are only 4 clubs in Europe who have got one. We are unique because we are different. Everything we do is different. We are data-driven. We are 100% data-driven in all the decisions we make on the football side. And that makes us unique. We are unique in our playing style. We are different. So there are 4, 5, I think it's 8 words that we use into one sentence. And that has become a very, very, very strong base of what we are now, the club. But it took us a long time. We haven't touched one thing apart from one value. So when we created all those projects, philosophical projects, a lot of people said, Toulouse is a family club. Toulouse Football Club is a family club. And we were in this meeting, I'll say, yeah, that's great. We are a family, we love each other. What a great value. And then we were in one of the meeting, and our club doctor came from Monaco. After Monaco, he was in Lille. So, massive clubs. And he sat there, he looked at her, he said, I don't agree. I don't want to work with a family club. I want to win. I didn't come from Monaco and from Lille in Toulouse to be part of a family. I want to win. So we all looked at each other and we said, well, actually, he's got a point. So it's the only time in 4 years that as a senior management, we decided to remove something that was submitted by our staff. And we told them, we had months of discussion about it. And we said, this is the reason why we are removing it. And what we did, we took the example. I said, look, we are not a family, but we are a high-level sports team off the pitch, the team behind the pitch, the team behind the team. We don't have to love each other, but we have to perform. And high-level teams perform. They are not families. They are high-level teams. And if Toni Kroos doesn't want to pass the ball to Luka Modric, okay, they are not going on holiday together, but they are an incredible performing team. So we went from family to we are high performance team, and you have to perform. And if you don't perform, unlike in a family, we'll push you out.
Yeah.
That was the whole process of creating.
Voglio mettere un attimo in pausa per fare un riassunto generale, poi Antonio, se vuoi correggermi, fai pure.
Sì.
Il riassunto è questo: lui prende il Tolosa che stava lottando per la retrocessione in Ligue 2, non in Ligue 1, in Ligue 2. La prende nel periodo Covid, fa attraverso una serie di domande, questionari, test, delle domande ai dipendenti e anche ai calciatori, immagino, training staff, eccetera, a cui chiede quali sono i valori del Tolosa e trova una cultura perdente. Cambia molti giocatori, cambia molto dello staff, cambia molto della squadra dirigenziale, eccetera. Inizia ad ottenere risultati e quello che vuole dire è che sono i risultati stessi a dare la cultura, diciamo, gli slogan fondativi del club, perché poi passati diversi anni dopo fa la stessa domanda e cambiano le risposte, quindi da giocatori che si sentivano perdenti perché il Tolosa veniva da anni bui, il Tolosa inizia a conquistare l'Europa, va in Europa League se non sbaglio e vince una Coppa di Francia, quindi sono i risultati sportivi che cambiano le fondamenta del club, che vanno avanti nel tempo con i progetti, i 54 progetti che ha portato avanti il suo staff, e dice che solamente un valore è stato cambiato all'interno di questo percorso, ovvero a family team. Non siamo più una squadra, come dire, familiare, non so nemmeno come tradurla per bene, con un clima da mulino bianco, sto riassumando alla crudele, ok?
Certo.
Ma siamo un high performing team, che magari non andranno d'accordo a vicenda, ma si va a lavorare per raggiungere un risultato e la performance per primeggiare. Quindi quel valore lì da family team a high performing team. Ho detto tutto giusto?
No, è giusto, e mi preme sottolineare solo una cosa. Lui fa un discorso di cultura del club, cioè quello che trova e quello che prova a cambiare di quella cosa lì. Quindi lui, per prima cosa, ovviamente in una situazione meno strutturata della Juventus, perché poi il Tolosa era una realtà molto più piccola, molto più appunto familiare, magari la
Pensate al
familiarità.
centro sportivo che ha la Juve, che è di primo ordine, ecco, per esempio.
Esatto, e quindi per questo io voglio diciamo, avvisare tutti che lui non è uno che applica il metodo che aveva prima, dopo, lui fa un discorso data driven perché ragazzi, i dati non sono opinioni, è un qualcosa che è persistente, ma non è l'unico aspetto e lui raccoglierà, questo è un discorso che fece tra l'altro anche Mourinho, la cultura preesistente del club e cercherà comunque di trovare giocatori e figure e persone culturalmente allineate. Non si tratta solo, faccio un esempio proprio veloce, poi ritorniamo, come ha fatto Giuntoli, prendo l'esterno che ha fatto più gol in Serie A prendibile di questi anni, prendo il centrocampista che ha fatto 10 gol in questi anni, prendo quello lì. Il discorso adesso è fatto in un modo diverso e in questo video vedrete anche un qualcosina di cui diciamo si tratta in termini proprio personali, cioè di cosa vogliono fare con questa persona per conoscerla prima, che forse ci sta un po' con quello che stavano a scegliere, ripeto, rispetto agli allenatori. Poi magari ci arriveremo.
Andiamo avanti, prego.
Prendo un bicchiere, ma
this culture, transforming the culture, creating the values. To answer your question is how to ingrain it. We didn't have to because it didn't come from the top. It came from the people in the club who decided what the values should be. And I'm the safeguard of it. The head of strategy and culture, one of her role is honestly, I must spend 30% of my time on a daily basis to think about our culture. Are we aligned with our values? When we sign a player, when I speak to a coach, when I speak to our sponsors, when how the way we communicate, we've got an incredibly marketing team. A lot of people say we are probably the coolest club in France in the way we communicate. We are always out of the box, it's sometimes I'm not happy because I say that's not us. You're disrespecting our opponent. And sometimes they say, okay, but if you want us to be different and special, you need to let us do this. So we are constantly talking about the culture. And one of the roles of our head of strategy and culture is to make sure I'm aligned with this culture. Sometimes I say something or I behave the wrong way or I want to do the wrong deal in terms of transfer. And she says, you are not disrespecting our values. Part of the role is to keep me on track. And if I'm on track with our values and our culture, then everyone should be aligned with that. And it's easy to do it because it's organic. It comes from people within the club. It doesn't come from the top management.
I love that answer. Has culture always been this important and this intentional to you? Or was there a moment in your career where you started saying, hey, when I'm a leader, we're doing this type of exercise as a club?
When I left Fenerbahce and I was approached by our current shareholders, Redbird Capital Partners, because they wanted to buy a club and they wanted me to run this club, it was very clear in my mind that this is something I would want to implement. I think it really, really started what I could put words to it, and a strategy behind it. It started at Liverpool when I was director of football at Liverpool. And then the more I spoke to high-level organizations, I used to spend a lot of time with Beatrice Cycling and Dave Bracefold, and then when he went then with Sky Cycling, or with the All Blacks, or with different organizations, or understanding what Google, Apple.
Che saluto. Ciao Edo, con la lettera del Parì tra l'altro.
Ciao, maglietta casuale.
Maglietta casuale, ma stavi seguendo già l'intervista, Edo?
Scusami?
Stavi già sentendo l'intervista o...
Sì, vi stavo seguendo,
Perfetto. Come ti pare per ora?
Ragazzi, dopo vi diamo il link, ma comunque potete
dopo ve lo mettiamo sul disco.
cercare Toulouse, President on Relegation, featuring Damien Comolli.
Come ti stava sembrando, Edo, l'intervista? Ti convince?
Sì, ma io ormai non voglio più dare la mia fiducia in dirigenti o altro dopo gli ultimi anni. Quindi.
È giusto. Andiamo avanti.
Doing etc. The more I could put words into what culture meant, and words into how to incorporate culture in high performance. And then as I matured in my life and in my career, I thought to myself, and I did a lot of reading about what culture means, what purpose means, what values mean to people. And it was very clear when I left Fenerbahce Istanbul, my next job as a leader, and I didn't know I would be the chairman of the club, this is something I want to implement.
Yeah, we have a division at Nolan Partners called Ethos, and we work on those types of projects where you're saying, let's audit the current identity and culture of an organization. And to your point, oftentimes that's months of really diving into the data and then helping the group architect and shape what is our culture going forward. And the common theme is most people don't have somebody in their organization whose title is head of strategy and culture. We've just done this for a couple NFL teams. We've got a baseball team we're working with right now. Corporate organizations are usually really intentional about their culture. Sport's a little bit behind there. And while it might be in the locker room, it's not always clearly articulated within the business operations. And I'm not sure why most haven't gotten there, but I'm sure because you did it this way, this bottom up. It's not me as chairman telling you how I expect all of you to be. You knew they had the answers inside of them because people who work there, they want to win. They want to perform. They want to be collegial. Correct. And so you got them to take ownership of it. When you proposed this to the staff, were they skeptical? Were they excited? I mean, they barely know you at this time. You're coming in from other clubs and they're all probably concerned about their jobs. What was the reception of, we're going through a big culture exercise together?
I think they were skeptical and relief at the same time that somebody's going to listen to me. That type of reaction. And somebody is going to take care of my beloved club that I've been working for 40 years or supporting for 40 years or whatever.
And I'm sure a lot of the employees are supporters.
Yeah.
It's their club.
Of course. And I remember some people coming up to me and say, I used not to say that I was working for Toulouse Football Club in the city because I felt ashamed.
Wow.
And now because we started winning. So the first year we lost in the playoff final. We got absolutely robbed by the referee. Last minute in Nantes, we were 1 goal short away. If we scored the second goal, we are up. And because, okay, we failed, but the next year we roll onto the division. We would be all the possible records, number of goals scored, goals scored at home, etc., etc. So, and we won the league. So,
because c'è un video, io l'ho visto ieri, ed si riferisce a quello in cui insegue l'arbitro. Se volete lo vediamo, lo posso trovare subito. Giusto per renderti conto.
Un buon intermezzo.
Sì, ve lo posso mettere un attimino, ragazzi, che lo devo trovare. L'ho visto io ieri notte, ho studiato, devo dire, su quest'uomo, e quindi ve lo voglio far vedere un attimino, ragazzi, che ci metterò. Eccoci qui, è uscito anche in Italia questo video, eccolo qua. Allora aspettate, condividiamo questa scheda. Eccolo qui il video, eccolo.
Comment vous pouvez pas le donner? Pourquoi vous pouvez pas le donner? Vous nous avez volé la montée! Scandaleux, vous avez été! Scandaleux! Qu'est-ce que c'est ce truc? Vous avez été scandaleux! Vous nous avez volé la montée!
L'énervement, la grosse frustration habite.
Appena ho mostrato il video, tutti, è un coglione, adesso casa di mortali. Io quanto vi conosco, siete proprio un libro aperto, siete un libro aperto. Se appena avete detto dov'è Rocchi, dite che la Juve ruba, merda, subito casati di mortacci. Quanto vi conosco, ma invece vi beccate l'intervista adesso.
Ma una cosa che volevo dire sull'intervista, però mi sono dimenticato, quindi vai avanti, mi ritorno dopo.
Andiamo avanti.
We won very early and the club was losing for 6 years running. We, at the same time that we were transforming the culture, we were winning games. So people were saying, finally I can be proud, and finally somebody is listening and taking care of what we are and of my football club. So the skepticism, how do you say, when people are skeptics?
Skeptical.
So the people who were skeptical turned very quickly into like flood of information they gave us and flood of emotions. So it was amazing. And now they're asking for it. Say, okay, what's the next project?
And
we call it, because, as I said many times, because we play in purple. So in the local language in south of France, it's called Occitan language. Purple is viola. It's like viola in Fiorentina. They are called viola as well. And we call those years. So we call them the viola years, the viola season. We go every year from February to February. We do the viola season. And people know the viola season is what are we going to work on our culture during those 12 months. They're asking for it. They say, okay, what's the next project? What's the next viola project? Because they are very, very eager to work on the culture.
That's exciting. How do you ensure, you said this earlier, that you make sure staff and even signings fit culture? How do you assess that in an interview and evaluation process to make sure that this person, who obviously is going to have the technical fits you're looking for, are actually great brand representatives of the culture you're building?
Do you mean players or staff?
Either. Let's start with players.
So with players, we are totally data driven in the selection of players, but as you might have guessed, we are also extremely culture driven as a club. So what the learning process, data gives us an indication about the player's character and personality, but not everything. So we don't scout players. We never watch players.
Really?
Never.
You let the data do the scouting.
Yes.
Quindi non guardano, cioè fanno la selezione già c'è una scrematura attraverso the data, i numeri, la scrematura iniziale. Ok? È molto importante questa cosa.
Sì, però clicco proprio sul bottone per ora con calma, perché alla Juventus si parla comunque del ritorno di Matteo Tognozzi, quindi si parla comunque di uno scout.
Ma non è che no, attenzione, andiamo avanti. Non si sta dicendo no, non guardiamo i calciatori. Inizialmente una prima scrematura te la dà l'algoritmo, te la danno i dati, ok? Ma attenzione.
So we watch videos, but we don't send scouts, like every other club do. What we do is our head of recruitment usually spend 3 to 5 days with every target we have, the final target. He goes to his house, he goes to eat with him, he says, take me to your favorite restaurant, take me to your nightclub. If you have one, of 3 players says he doesn't. I want to meet your mom, I want to meet your dad, I want to meet your siblings. And we try to understand if that culture will fit in our culture. Part of our culture is our playing style. We are very, very strong on the way we play football because we feel the way we play football helps us overperform. Just to give you an indication of how much we overperform, when we won promotion, we had the 3rd highest wage bill. Last year, we had 19th wage bill. We won the league. We finished 13th. This year, we have 17th wage bill out of 18. We finished 11th. We got to the round of 32 of the Europa League. First time in the history of the club. So that the playing style part of it is a strong pillar of our culture. And once we know the data is telling us if that player's playing style will adapt to our playing style, we need to understand if his own culture fits to our culture. So that's why we do all this background research. We gather intelligence on the player. And I always say to our player liaison officer, I always tell her, when you pick up a player, the player walks into your car at the airport, he needs to understand what we are about. So every staff who is in touch with our players at the club needs to know our culture. He's a culture builder or culture architect, and the staff. And we try to sign players who are culture builders as well and culture architects. And the most beautiful thing I heard in our changing room for the last 4 years, we recruited a player from 2nd division in Holland who was elected best player in the league, and then ended up signing for Ajax. He was kicked out by Ajax when he was 14, comes back on the front door at Ajax. I think he was 2nd year or 3rd year he was there last season. He's Dutch, doesn't speak French, never been to Toulouse before he came and signed for the club. Never knew what he was stepping into. And I remember after a halftime of a game last year, he said, guys, this is not Toulouse Football Club. And I'm thinking that we got something there. Because he was not happy with the playing style, he was not happy with the commitment. And when the players are the vector and the communicator of your culture and your values, you won. Especially if there are players who have no connection with the country, the city, the club, then you won. And those architect builders, we are trying to find them. Sometimes we fail. I've got to admit the data is telling us sign this player, but they don't fit culturally. And that's an incredible frustration. So when it happens, we review everything and we try to go even deeper into the research of their background and intelligence gathering. On the staff, the key for me is, are we addressing somebody who's going to serve the club or serve himself? Is he going to help himself?
Serve himself mi ricorda qualcuno anche che è stato fatto fuori a breve come dirigente. Work for himself.
Will he be a taker or a giver? If he's a giver, then there is a great chance he's a culture fit with the club. If he's a taker, there is very little chance that he will stay for long. And that during the interview process, especially at executive team level or board level, is something we try to assess a lot.
Yeah,
Possiamo fare un passo indietro, ragazzi, sui calciatori, non sullo staff, perché quello che dice è molto importante, ovvero noi imponiamo nella raccolta di dati il nostro modo di giocare. Il modello è siamo noi, vogliamo giocare, non lo so, offensivi 4-3-3 o difensivi fare 3-4-1-2 con i terzini che arretrano, cioè non ti sta dicendo, deve fittare il modello con la cultura che il management vuole, diciamo, imporre, ok? Da lì avviene la scrematura e poi la conoscenza, no ragazzi, del giocatore passo passo, con 5 giorni passati con lui, le sue abitudini, i suoi ragionamenti, la sua vita personale, eccetera, eccetera. Anche qui, se ho fatto degli errori, Edo, Antonio, correggetemi, ma ditemi anche se vi gasa questa cosa.
Do spazio a Edo, poi rispondo.
Vai Edo, smutati.
Io sono molto breve e diretto in ciò. È una cosa che mi piace, però ho qualche dubbio che possa funzionare alla Juve.
La Juventus, certo. La chiave è quella, se gli verrà dato spazio per lavorare come vuole, ecco, deve avere carta bianca, lì fa il presidente, quello dobbiamo vederlo. Antonio.
No, io credo che con le premesse che hai fatto anche tu a inizio live, dove dicevi effettivamente che Comolli non è stato scelto negli ultimi 2 giorni, ma questa cosa ve la posso garantire anch'io perché ho più o meno capito da dove è venuta questa notizia e non è assolutamente così. E soprattutto, ragazzi, c'è da fare un punto, da mettere un po' logicamente a terra la situazione. La Juventus dal post Beppe Marotta ha avuto la delega di arriva bene, praticamente, c'è stato il boom, è andato via Andrea Agnelli che era il centro della nostra cultura, tant'è vero che quando va tutto male c'è chi inneggia ad Agnelli. Col tempo noi abbiamo portato effettivamente un altro direttore generale. Direttore generale per noi è la figura più importante in questo momento, più del presidente, perché il presidente è un aggiustaconti nel nostro caso, ok? E quindi dopo Giuntoli si è andati su una figura che in Italia non avevi a disposizione, perché sono tutte bloccate nelle loro società e soprattutto per fare lo step alla Juventus hanno ancora più difficoltà ad incidere rispetto ad altre società. La società ha preso un uomo che già un'altra grande società americana, ovvero Redbird, ha deciso di far scalare a presidente, a controllore di tutto. Per me Comolli è molto simile a Beppe Marotta, perché Beppe Marotta è una persona che sappiamo benissimo, tant'è vero che si parla di Marotta League, è un personaggio che mette le mani su qualsiasi cosa. Se magari Beppe Marotta mette mano su qualsiasi cosa all'esterno, Comolli la mette all'interno. È uno fissato col concetto di cultura, essendo non italiano, perché magari Marotta è molto più subdolo nel suo modo di fare, è molto più formato su quelli che sono degli aspetti competitivi, tanto è vero che cerca sempre di privare gli altri. Mi vengono in mente i mercati più di successo della Juventus. Andiamo a prendere il migliore della Roma, il portiere effettivo della Roma più forte che alla Juventus fa lo step, esempio Szczesny. Ragazzi, ripeto, sull'intervista Tolosa...
Vi lasciamo tutto su Discord, se vi abbonate vi lasciamo tutti su Discord alla portata di tutti.
Ok, se no appena mo ridiamo lo schermo vi leggete là sopra. Comunque sarò di nuovo breve perché sto video ce lo dobbiamo mangiare. Noi facevamo un discorso competitivo di andare a privare gli altri delle loro migliori risorse e di diventare sempre più forti. Arrivati alla fine di quella cosa con Beppe Marotta, tutta la cultura è arrivata in mano a Massimiliano Allegri, perché era diventato lui quello lì che doveva portare diciamo la squadra a vincere l'unica cosa che non era riuscita a vincere, e quindi da lì in poi andare avanti. Questa cosa qui con Allegri è fallita, quindi il centro della cultura alla Juventus l'ha riperso, ha rimesso Giuntoli. Giuntoli non ha fatto cultura perché dopo Thiago Motta per lui l'uomo da portare era Mancini, quindi un uomo completamente diverso nelle idee. Non si può applicare più quel modello che io dicevo Barcellona, per esempio, perché era la cosa più simile, portare i giocatori dalle giovanili, quello che faceva Motta. Mancini sta roba non la fa. Mi sarebbe piaciuto Gasperini perché all'Atalanta l'ha fatto, però evidentemente, ragazzi, leggendo anche quello che ha scritto Romeo Agresti, era molto difficile convincere Gasperini in un giorno e mezzo, perché Comolli lo vedete è una persona che prima di mettere un uomo all'interno di una squadra vuole capire se ci possono essere problemi futuri.
Se fitta nella cultura. Così, ragazzi.
E tutti, ragazzi, tutti quanti siamo sicuri che magari era un problema. La cosa che va detto, perché ho letto qualche commento in chat, l'avete completamente fraintesa sul calciatore che entra in una cultura. Lui vi ha detto un olandese viene al Tolosa e praticamente detta legge. Dice ragazzi non mi piace quello che stiamo a fare. E lui dice io apprezzo quando arriva un giocatore che non capisce un cazzo di quello che c'ha attorno, ma comunque si impone, comunque porta, alza l'asticella, che è quella cosa che ha fatto Tevez. Tevez è un giocatore che ha litigato con tutti.
Sì, appunto, cioè, non capisco da dove nasce questa cosa.
Alla Juventus è stato un capopopolo. Quindi quello che vi sta dicendo non è l'opposto, anzi lui va nella direzione di fare queste cose. E il problema che abbiamo avuto in questi anni è che hai preso grandi calciatori che non ti hanno fatto l'effetto Tevez. Hai preso Di Maria e non ha fatto niente. Hai preso, ma banalmente anche Kostic, che era un giocatore che rispetto ai dati semplici, non dati tecnici, Kostic era un grande crossatore, ma l'effetto da noi è stato un Candreva bis. Perciò ragazzi, i nomi importanti andranno presi, perché non puoi fare tutta cultura con
certo, ma certo.
normali. Però se vi dico...
ripeto, stiamo parlando in modo ipotetico adesso.
Esatto, ma se vi dico un José María Gutiérrez, magari in mano a un Gasperini, poteva avere un problema, adesso la società, Gutiérrez del Girona, esterno sinistro, faccio l'esempio, magari con questa società l'acquisto che viene fatto viene tenuto in un cerchio, viene preso comunque un allenatore che già può andare d'accordo, evitano di dire ho preso questo, ha scazzato con Motta. Cercano comunque di costruire la cosa meglio prima, magari perdendo.
Se tu avessi preso Thiago Motta, devi trovare i giocatori, e te lo dicono i dati, e anche le interviste che tu fai face to face col calciatore, se possono fittare con Thiago Motta, con Gasperini, con Antonio Conte, con Mancini. E questo è il punto, ragazzi, spiegato in modo
Infatti la Juve doveva prendere Ferguson perché era il giocatore perfetto al centro del modulo di Thiago Motta, ma poi si ruppe. C'è stato un problema, il Bologna si è opposto sui nostri calciatori, cioè magari Comolli per esempio non avrebbe preso Thiago Motta perché non poteva portarsi magari nemmeno un giocatore della sua cultura che ha creato a Bologna, e farlo alla Juventus sarebbe stato difficile, o gli avrebbe dato tempo, ci sarebbero state tante cose.
Andiamo avanti, ragazzi.
Andiamo avanti.
Prego.
I think those are phenomenal answers. It's hard to always see that in an interview process. That's where references become so important, or just as your chief scout might do, taking people out to dinner, seeing how they interact with others, because you do want people who have enough ego that they care about their work product. You do want people who have enough self-interest that they want to perform well. But once you reach a point where they care about themselves more than they care about the team, that's when it's not the right culture fit.
I totally agree. And what we try to assess is when we interview players, we do interview players, because the luxury about working with data is if player number 1 says no, we go to number 2. If number 2 says no, we go to number 3, because the margin between 1 and 2 is so small, and the data allows us to have 10 to 15 players per position, as a target. And we are comfortable going for first or 10 because they are good, whatever, they are good. So when we do interview players, and if we are not comfortable with them, then we move on. One of the questions I ask, I say, what game did you watch last night? Or what's the last game you watched on TV? If the player doesn't have an answer, I know he doesn't like football. And if he doesn't like football, then it's a red flag for us, straight away.
Quanto adoro questo concetto, lo adoro proprio, eh? Questo concetto devi essere ossessionato. Questa è la cosa che amo io, raga. Questa è la cosa che amo.
If you don't like football, difficult. The key word at the moment in the performance, in the football industry, I will say, is the player coachable. Very difficult to coach a player, and for a player to accept to be coached. So, meaning he wants to improve, he's dedicated, committed to his job on a daily basis. If he's not coachable, it's very difficult. If he's not passionate, the likelihood he's coachable is extremely unlikely. So for players, that's one question I ask. It's a trap, but it's a question I ask. We have also like a cloud of questions that we've been defining with our team psychologists, that all of us, we kind of have a question or 2 or 3 questions to ask to the player to try to gather his personality. And all this is the player doesn't realize he's being interviewed actually by our psychologists indirectly through us.
Right.
But we do that a lot. On leaders, like senior leaders at the club, what I look at, first of all, is I want people around me who are more intelligent than me. They have to be brighter than me. They have to be much better than me. That's the first thing I'm looking for. Secondly, we are looking for high performer. Third, and that's something that our head of strategy came up with about a year ago or 2 years ago. She said, we cannot afford, in a small organization like we are, we don't have money, we have very small resources, we cannot afford to make mistakes, signing people, getting people who are not self-driven. The intrinsic motivation is a non-negotiable. And then it's about the high performer. It's a very thin line between high performance and toxicity. Coming back to your point, when does the individual work on himself, for himself, and not for the club? And I'm ready to take every risk of getting a high performance individual, or high value individual, high performer, providing it doesn't become toxic. And it's part of my job to make sure he stays on that line or she stays on that line. And the beauty of it is you can be sure once a year, if not twice a year, our team psychologist or our head of strategy come to see me and say, you are being toxic. You are being toxic to the environment. You are being toxic to your players. You are being toxic to the coaching staff. You are being toxic. So come back on the right line.
Lo puoi dire dillo anche live.
Non voglio interrompere il tuo discorso. Seguendo questo ragionamento, Gatti e Vlahovic sono i primi che salutiamo. Quindi.
Sì, esatto. Posso dire, seguendo questo discorso, l'allenatore ideale era quello che c'era prima, raga.
Sì, assolutamente.
Ma infatti
mi fa proprio rabbia sta cosa. Mi fa proprio rabbia.
Assolutamente.
No, ma infatti Marco Silva è molto simile a Thiago Motta.
Sì.
Ragazzi, è spiaccicato, ma io posso capire il problema di divulgazione che aveva Thiago Motta con nessuno a difenderlo. Quello è stato il problema. Ragazzi, Thiago Motta ha perso lì, perché poi con Kenan è diventato un giocatore molto migliore grazie a Thiago Motta. Altrimenti sarebbe magari stato un attaccante un po' frainteso. Io ripeto, io ringrazio Cristo che ci ha allenato Thiago Motta l'anno scorso rispetto a Conte, perché magari adesso Yildiz non ce l'avevi più. La cosa che abbiamo capito da quest'anno è che i giocatori sono la cosa più importante di tutte. E lui lo sa, Comolli è uno che va verso questa tesi. Abbiamo saputo di calciatori che sono molto individualisti, ma lo dico, con Seisao è un giocatore di questi, è un giocatore che rompe il cazzo se non gioca. E quindi io, per esempio,
sarebbe toxic, come ti direbbe.
La toxicity o la insegni oppure sei fuori. E infatti ci sta che magari uno del genere te lo metti in prestito e vedi come ragiona. Ma quanti ne abbiamo visti, ragazzi, cagare fuori dal vaso in questi mesi? Fare sti post del cazzo su Instagram?
Perin è un altro che io saluterei domani.
Chi?
Perin
è la cultura sua. Pocherino stasera? Andiamo avanti con l'intervista, altrimenti ci becchiamo le denunce.
Sì, ossessionato il gioco.
Mm. So if I'm the first one being toxic at some part of the season, then this is something I cannot let happen. So they need to bring me back on track. And
they feel comfortable saying that to you.
Oh yeah, well, if they have to.
Yeah.
It's part of the job. I mean, their duty is to keep me on track. And if I feel at some point I'm being toxic because I'm never happy because the team is not performing, or I'm not happy with the performances of the coaching staff, of the players, or whatever, I let those people know, and sometimes in the wrong way, and I become toxic. And if I'm toxic, everyone below me be toxic. But so because I've learned how to identify the time where I'm being toxic or I'm being told, and so the more I learn about it, so I can see it coming. And I try to manage myself. But at the same time, all the high performers we have in our leadership team at the club, we cannot let them being toxic, but at the same time, we cannot afford not to have high performers. And that's why it's an incredible thin line between the two. But I will never say no to a high performer, providing at the beginning I feel there is something in him that makes him a team player. And he's intrinsically motivated. We can't afford to push people all the time. They have to push themselves. And they have to carry the organization up.
I had a very successful championship coach in rugby the other day share, to your point, that the top thing that matters to him is that somebody loves the game. And he goes, don't get me wrong, you can make a lot of money playing some sports, but I don't want them to love money first. You can win in a lot of different sports. I don't want them to love winning first. And his whole point was, he goes, those who love the game, when I say day off, there's no practice on Saturday, you know what they're doing at home? They're practicing.
Of course.
Because they love it that much. He's like, and that is the intrinsic motivator that I need in my people. I see it in my day job all the time too. There's a lot of people who want to work in sport, but it's those who actually love their job function, legal, finance, governance, supply chain, scouting, whatever it is, who are often the ones who can persevere and push through some really hard times in a business because they genuinely love the work itself, not the brand, the badge,
correct,
the championship, because that team won't always win. And that team culture might have some shifts and changes over time, but do they still love legal? Great. They're going to find ways to persevere through a lot of these elements.
There is one thing I've got to be honest with you. I met world champions, football world champions in my life who don't like football.
Yeah.
But
me too. Yeah.
But they love competition. If they could have been in baseball or basketball or tennis or whatever, or NFL, they will be incredible competitors. So I think the love of competition and the intrinsic motivation say, okay, I happen to play football and to be very good at it and to be a world champion at that level. I don't really love football, but there is no way this guy is going to beat me.
Yeah.
There is no way. So the love for competition sometimes compensate the lack of passion for the sport.
Yeah, for sure.
But there is a love. And whether it's the love sport, the
Posso
sport,
fare un esempio clamoroso del più LeBron James.
Ha un modo, infatti io Fabio ci stavo pensando, ha un modo molto americano,
non ama
molto
il basket,
simile
ragazzi, LeBron James, se tu gli chiedi qual è il tuo sport preferito, è il football, non è il basket. LeBron James è il più grande giocatore di pallacanestro degli ultimi anni, perché è un competitore, oltre ad essere un baciato da Dio nel fisico, nelle abilità, ma è un competitore incredibile.
Ma
vado avanti perché non voglio,
quando ha parlato, che ha detto che lui apprezza i giocatori o comunque chi il sabato magari è il giorno libero e non c'è allenamento, ma lui in realtà a casa si allena, a parte che mi è venuto in mente lo scambio di Doncic di febbraio. Però sì. Kobe comunque ha una mentalità molto americana in questo, molto da atleta NBA.
Vero. Andiamo avanti.
Petition, it doesn't really matter as long as they are there. It's there, it's in them.
And there's no better example probably than traditional corporate environment, because most people don't love hand soap or love paper towels, right? They love competing and they love their job, and therefore they can help Unilever win market share or whoever they might be working. So in your career then, how do you continue to find ways to further develop yourself professionally, personally, take care of your health? I mean, there's so many areas to continue being a high performer you need to invest into. But it's hard to find that time when you have a role as all-encompassing as a chair.
Yeah, so learning is an issue, and at the moment I'm totally snowed under, for example, and I'm going to be for probably another month. And it's frustrating for me because I don't have time to learn, and I hate it. I'm obsessed about learning. I learn by reading, and by reading a lot of stuff which is not football related, not sports related, actually.
What are you reading, or what do you like to read?
I read Harvard's Business Review every other month because now it comes out every 2 months.
They didn't lower the price though.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I can afford it.
Same price, half the production.
Yeah. So that's kind of a Bible. I'm not religious, but it's kind of my business Bible.
Pure non religioso,
I listen to podcasts like this one. I won't listen to my podcast, but to your podcast. If I'm sitting, the privilege I have in my position, I encounter a lot of very successful businessmen or politicians. And if I'm sitting with a politician, I ask him, okay, how was Jacques Chirac as a president? How was Sarkozy as a president? How did you deal with this conflict in the Middle East? And I'm sure I'm going to get something about leadership. I'm sure I'm going to get something about how do you deal with pressure. So it's constant. So there is the formal, I say, okay, this book, I'm going to read it. Currently, I'm reading a book on Charles de Gaulle, his first years up to the end of World War II, about the resilience, about the mental strength, about the vision, so it's constant. And the inspiration comes from a lot of different places and a lot of different areas. Where I'm frustrated and I'm scared, I'm not frustrated, I'm scared, is when I won't have time to learn. It's not that I will not improve, I'll stand still. If I stand still, then I become worse, basically. And that really scares me. It does. For the last 3 or 4 months, I haven't been able to learn as much as I want to, and I'm scared that something will come out and I don't know about, or a new idea will come out and I was not on top of it. So it's back to your curiosity question at the beginning. I think, as far as the well-being is concerned, I try to stay fit. I'm a terrible sleeper. I can't sleep, so I sleep 4 to 5 hours a night, which is enough. But I look after my nutrition, hydration. I try to do sports at least twice, if ideally 3 times a week, but twice is already a miracle. Yeah, I always thought when people look at you as a leader, you need to inspire them, and to inspire, you cannot inspire them if you don't look decent, basically. And I think people who don't work in a high performance world, in a high performance industry, maybe they don't realize how demanding it is physically to have a 10 months or 11 month season. We play 50 times. Okay, the players play, the coaches play, but we take the stress, we take the travel, we don't take a break. At the moment, all our players and coaching staff are off for 6 weeks, and we work and we keep working and we keep working as an executive team or senior management. So it's physically very demanding, mentally draining. And to be able to sustain it, you need to look after yourself.
Yeah, no, it's so important, especially when you travel. I've gotten into the routine of saying, the moment I land, I'm going on a jog or I'm going on a bike ride.
That's great.
I've started booking my flights around it, because if it's not a routine for me, it's easy for me to quit it.
Absolutely.
But now I'm trying to make it part of my identity. Right? I'm somebody who does this activity when I land. It's amazing how much better that business trip becomes, that vacation becomes, because I've established it in that moment. But went years not doing this, and you start noticing the health deteriorate, the energy deteriorate. It's so important.
I almost eat like a player.
Yeah, do you?
Oh yeah. Well, sometimes I have to socialize, so I'll have drink and stuff, but because it's part of the job. But if I can, I follow what the nutritionist gives to the players.
Yeah. To make sure you're eating healthy.
Yes, and drink the right things as well.
That's right. So we'll wrap up. Transition with 7 questions we ask everybody. We call it the 7-question blitz. See what common themes there are and get to learn about people. So first one for you. What sporting event have you never attended that would be on your sporting bucket list?
Sadly, I think I've done all of them.
Have you done them all? Good.
Sadly, because I'm only 52 and still have a lot of years to go.
You're gonna have to do something like the cheese wheel log that happens in Gloucestershire or something.
Yeah, something. I'm not sure I'll drive 3 hours to see it though. No, joking apart, I think I've done love Rugby World Cup, but if I could attend the Rugby World Cup final with France beating England, that would be a dream.
That would be the win.
Yeah, because I love rugby. And the other things will be to watch the Golden State Warriors in the NBA finals. Because I lived in San Francisco when I was a kid. So I haven't been supporting the Warriors since they've been good. I've been supporting the Warriors through the horrible times.
Yeah.
Since 87, 88. So they were bad.
Quindi quando fecero lo scambio di Chris Webber, minchia raga, io mi ricordo i Warriors di una volta, ragazzi, è veramente una barzelletta totale. No, in realtà i Warriors non mi sono antipatici. Cosa?
Direi che adesso si è consolato un po' negli ultimi anni.
Di portarci su, a dire di sì. Vabbè.
Watching them, I watched them on TV win the NBA finals the last few years, not live, so I will say those two things.
Yeah, I love that answer. Of all the sporting memories that you've been to, what's your favorite? What stands out to you as the most memorable?
Oh, it's so difficult. It's impossible. People often ask me this question.
Yeah, you've had some good ones though.
Yeah, exactly. So whether my hometown team, rugby team, when I grew up, was the best in Europe, winning the league in France all the time, and the first time I saw them win the championship was in '78. I was 7, and that's my first big memory. And I can't rank them. France winning the World Cup, twice, and me being in the stadium in '98 with watching players that I either coached or
Wow.
like Thierry Henry or scouted like Vieira and others winning for France. It was incredible, winning the Premier League 3 times with Arsenal, the FA Cup with Arsenal, the double twice, winning a trophy at Wembley with Spurs, which was incredible, with Liverpool, which was incredible, winning the FA Cup with Toulouse. How do you define that? Going from bottom of second tier of French football to winning the FA Cup in less than 3 years. How do you find that? It's so I can't rank them. Sorry, I don't have the answer. I just can't rank them. But to be honest with you, I remember more the defeats than losing finals or titles than winning. Winning doesn't really interest me. The only upside of winning about winning is not losing. I wake up every day not to lose.
Yeah.
I don't wake up to win. I wake up not to lose games.
Not to lose.
And not to be mediocre.
Cosa? È molto kantiano in questo concetto.
È molto ossessionato lui, dal lavoro, dalla vittoria, dal...
Sì.
Se questo dice vincere non è importante.
The losing hurts me a lot more than the enjoyment of winning. Lost some cups, cup finals and European finals and stuff like that. I think about the losses a lot more than I think about the wins. And sadly, as Arsene was coming towards the end of his management career, he said to me one day, he said, I thought it would get easier with getting old. It gets worse. So sadly, it's going to get worse for me as well, probably. But yeah, that's what it is.
All right, I'm going to take a rabbit trail because I wanted to ask it earlier and I just remembered. You've worked for the biggest clubs on the planet. What went through your mind to say, you know what, I'm going to go to a second division club? Obviously, you knew what Toulouse could be, but to leave a big club like Fenerbahce, you could have easily gone back to another big club in Europe. Yeah, and you said, I'm going to go second division and try to build it. What was your kind of consideration at that time?
Different things. One, I've never been a chairman before. So either I was going into another job I've done before in a different club, but I've never been a chairman before. Secondly, my approach was to say, I build teams or help build teams winning championship, help build teams or build teams that won cups and trophies, get into Champions League, blah, blah, blah. Can I build a team to get promoted? I had no idea if I could do it. No idea.
It was the challenge.
Yeah. And I was very humble about it. I thought, maybe I'm not suited for this. Maybe I can't do it. That was the second thing.
What'd your wife say?
Great challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said. And then the third reason, it was the first time I had the opportunity to have some shares of the club. So it was not like an ownership employees situation, but more like on par. Partnership. And I changed everything, not for the money, but for being able to speak to people at the same level and implement my ideas, not having to deal with owners who are not going to the same direction or struggling to be aligned with the ownership.
La chiave di successo alla Juventus, ragazzi.
I'm part of the ownership, so I have to be aligned, right? So that was the challenge.
I appreciate that answer. I'll go back to the questions.
The other questions.
Yeah, I'll stay on track here, but I had to be nosy a little bit.
Okay, no problem.
So if you could go golfing with any 3 people, living or historic, who would it be?
So I'm very boring. There is only football in my life. I don't golf. But
fine, you can play four-a-side. You can play four-a-side football with them.
Because I come from the south of France, where we have a saying. We say the art of the table. So the art of drinking and eating well. I will say it's an art. We say it's an art. So rather than going golfing, I'll go lunch or dinner.
Deal.
With people. I'll have two types, if I may. The first one, I'll have my wife, my two daughters, Bruce Springsteen and Arsene Wenger. Arsene, because every discussion I've known him since I was 18, I'm 52. Every dinner, lunch discussion, there is enlightenment coming out of it. Bruce Springsteen, because he's carried me through teenagehood, adulthood. He's been incredible and help in my life with his songs. And I admire creativity. I'm not a creative person. You give me a task. You give me a club, I build it. But I'm not creative. I admire creativity, whether it's an artist, a singer, a chef, painter, whatever it is. And because he's my idol as well, Springsteen. I admire this creativity he has in him, which I absolutely don't have. So that's why I have time and appreciation and admiration for creative people. The second one I will have, I'll have a dinner with John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Charles de Gaulle, and Churchill. It's easy to be a leader. Bringing people together, being inspiring, it's easy. I found it easy. The most difficult thing in leadership is mental toughness and resilience.
Yeah.
And those people, through the times they went through, to say, I'm not moving I won't make any compromise for my country, or because I believe in something, and I'm carrying my country through this time because I'm driven, because I'm incredibly mental tough, and I'm resilient. This is what I admire the most in leadership. The rest is easy. The most difficult is to keep the commitment, the discipline towards what you want to be, go at the lead as a leader, where you want to take your organization. So you can imagine as a country or as a Western hemisphere to a point for those three. And that leaves me speechless. And I love to have the opportunity to speak to them and say, how on earth have you done that?
Yeah. It's interesting. We talk about it a lot here. First-time CEOs haven't always proven resilience yet. Many of them get to that role because they had a lot of success and growth along the way. And you have to be really thoughtful about whether they have resilience in their blood, because they don't always know either until they've actually faced those challenges, and many cave under pressure. So to have actually lived it, those are great examples, and people who've had to have some of the most challenging scenarios. What are some of your professional pet peeves?
I can't stand mediocrity. If there are people who are mediocre around me, they can't stay. I can't stand mediocrity, and I don't understand how somebody cannot be hardworking. It's just not, because it's not in my genes. It's not in my hardware. Sorry, there is no way I understand it. So I don't know if it's the right answer to your question.
I love it.
Those two things just drive me crazy.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was looking for. What's something about you nobody knows? I've got to know you a lot today, but there's got to be something you didn't tell me yet. Something about you,
yeah,
that most people don't know about you.
Because I'm very open, doing this type of exercise, and I do it to give back to the community. I was incredibly privileged to have at some point Arsene Wenger say, okay, I'm going to help this guy, or David into saying, I'm going to help you, and whatever. So I try to give back to the sports industry or the community, sports community as a whole, by doing this type of exercise. And thank you for inviting me. People know I've got two daughters, but they don't know I've got amazing daughters. They've faced a lot of headwinds in their life. One is disabled. She's deaf, 100% deaf, went to university, learning a foreign language, moving to a foreign country as we speak today.
Wow.
To start a new job, when everyone told us she has no chance. And a sister, elder sister, went through...
Ragazzi, che storia. Alla faccia.
5 years of bullying, harassing, sexual violences at school. And she's a solicitor. And there are two incredible young girls, young women, 21 and 24. So people know I've got daughters, but they don't know how amazing now. That's one thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing,
talk about resilience. That's real resilience right there.
And the other thing would be, people know I'm married, but they don't know how amazing my wife is. She changed me. We met 5 years ago. She made me a better father, which is the most important thing. And she made me a better person and a better executive as well. So people know I have daughters and I have a wife, but they don't know how good they are.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure they'll be honored to hear that as well. Hardest question I'm going to ask you all day. If you weren't allowed to work in football, what would you be doing right now?
I mean, I'll be the most boring, depressed person on the planet. It's not a job in particular, as per se, but I will say I'll probably try to get people out of poverty, especially children. If I could have a job and get people out of poverty, I would love it. I will try to stop people's or countries fight stupid wars for stupid reasons. So maybe a diplomat or something. I think I won't be very patient because it doesn't think that diplomacy works greatly as of late. But that's probably something I will dedicate my life to, stop people from fighting each other.
Yeah, thank you. Final question, easy one. When I find myself traveling through Toulouse, where do I need to go to dinner?
You need to go to a restaurant which is called Pierre. It's written P-Y-R. The chef is called Pierre Lambinon. He's just turned 40. He's one of the most talented chefs in France at the moment. 2 stars Michelin star, on his way to get the 3rd one. Talk about creativity.
No arriva bene.
I admire him for his creativity, what comes out of his dishes. So that's the place. And the bill is on me, by the way.
Oh, I would love to join you. I never turn down Michelin star restaurants.
You should try this.
I'm in. I think I'll be there next week.
Sure.
Damien, wonderful spending time with you. Thank you for the engaging conversation, for being so open and for sharing
Thank you for
as
having
much as
me.
you did.
Thank you very much.
Ragazzi, questo è Damien Comolli. Al volo perché dobbiamo scappare. Io dico semplicemente una cosa: se lo lasciano lavorare, non è molti di voi hanno detto coglione, c'è subito bollare. Se lo lasciano lavorare, mi sembra una persona seria. Il se è troppo grosso, però, e io la certezza non ce l'ho, purtroppo. Laudante, Edo, al volo, prego.
Ok, prima Edo perché avrei una proposta.
Vai Edo, al volo ragazzi, al volo, dobbiamo fare anche la copertina.
Vai. Allora, io sono entrato nella live che ti ho detto che non volevo affezionarmi a un dirigente.
E adesso sei un bimbo di Comolli.
Però viene difficile durante un'intervista del genere non avere fiducia, non avere entusiasmo, anche perché ha un approccio al lavoro, un'etica, ma anche un'intelligenza, e si sente anche quando... L'intelligenza la si percepisce anche quando parla di argomenti estranei al calcio, ed è la cosa più bella secondo me in una persona. Mi piace proprio dal punto di vista umano, per quanto io l'abbia visto in questa intervista. Dal punto di vista umano adoravo anche Thiago, e sappiamo com'è finita. E come hai detto tu, il sé è molto grande. Io ho paura che questo suo approccio al lavoro alla Juventus non possa funzionare, sia per una questione di ambiente che per una questione di individui ancora presenti in dirigenza, e quindi ho qualche dubbio che questo suo approccio al lavoro possa funzionare alla Juventus, che è la stessa cosa che penso di Thiago Motta.
Certo. Laudante, the floor is yours, prego.
Sì, vorrei mandare a schermo quella roba che hanno messo su Romeo, perché secondo me serve agli altri per capire effettivamente che cosa è successo con come si chiama, con Comolli e Gasperini, perché la Gazzetta l'ha infamato e credo che sia quello un benvenuto veramente molto brutto, e per me la ricostruzione di Romeo è molto...
un'espressione da Boris molto italiano.
È molto italiano, esatto. E vorrei metterla a schermo. Vedo
Vai,
di
se ti riesci,
riuscirci.
prego.
Credo proprio che l'ho fatto.
Fabio, hai letto il commento di Crowdem che ha scritto: Edo, 2 punti, non voglio affezionarmi. Edo 40 minuti dopo, mi farei sparare alle ginocchia per
Sì,
allora.
ne parlavamo prima, quello che dice Romeo è che magari ieri la telefonata, se l'ha fatta Comolli, a me risulta che l'ha fatta Chiellini, ma se evidentemente Romeo, io mi fido ciecamente di Romeo, dice che l'ha fatta Comolli, magari Comolli ha detto vediamoci, conosciamoci, prendiamoci del tempo per appunto approfondire la nostra conoscenza e poi decidiamo. Lui però questa conoscenza l'ha avuta prima con Ranieri, con la Roma, e quindi è andata così.
No, io credo che anche Gasperini, proprio nel suo momento di vita, accettare una cosa molto complicata come probabilmente quella che voleva offrirgli Comolli, che ha un'idea sugli allenatori molto particolare. Io gli ho anche sentito dire che per lui l'allenatore conta il 5%.
Inizialmente però ha detto,
inizialmente. Quindi per questo noi dobbiamo costruire prima l'attorno e poi l'allenatore.
Certo, ci dicono che c'è anche l'intervista a Chiellini in questo, quindi vuol dire che sono già amici. Vuol dire...
insomma.
Bene. Vedremo. Ragazzi, quanto fa? L'Inter la vince stasera, no? Ovviamente.
Ma figura, è impossibile che non la vinca, certo.
Impossibile. Allora, possono già andare a festeggiare.
Sì.
Io mi vado a sentire rap stasera, ragazzi.
Io invece sarò in diretta perché la commento, mi prendo la tortura e la polpetta avvelenata di commentarla, e quindi ci vediamo questa sera. Facciamo la copertina, ragazzuoli, un attimo. Saluto anche gli amici di X che ci stanno guardando, gli amici di Twitch chiaramente, YouTube tra poco il contenuto andrà anche per te, lasciate un like, commentate, fate quello che dovete fare. Fermi, vai. Ok, ragazzi, è stato un piacere passare il sabato pomeriggio con voi. Ciao Antonio, ciao Edo, ciao a tutti.
Ciao a tutti, raga, a presto.
Puoi salutare almeno.
Fermi. Mi sentite?
Sei fermo.
Mi sentite?
Sì, ti sentiamo sintonizzato. Sei sintonizzato. Ti sentiamo.
Perfetto.
Ma perfetto cosa che sei fermo?
Come sono fermo? Io questa live la ricaricherei subito.
No, non te lo scordi, io te lo giuro, guarda.
Io la ricaricherei.
Me ne vado da LB, io questa roba la cancello pure, guarda, la cancello pure da Twitch. La cancello pure da Twitch.
Andiamo via.
Ragazzi,
proviamo a riavviare.
Guarda la sola.
Prova a riavviare. Passiamo per la arancione e poi fermi. No, Fabio, io e te ce ne andiamo, noi lo lasciamo in live. Io mi vedo, che cazzo fate?
Ti vediamo bene.
Mi sentite?
Sentiamo bene, sì. Sì!
E mi sentite anche? Confermatemi?
Sì! Che hai fatto?
Ok, con un secondo di lag però.
Mi dici cosa hai fatto?
Ho cambiato l'output dell'audio perché non...
Visto?
Ho cambiato l'audio dell'audio e ho cambiato adesso il capitolo dell'audio. No, ma non era la linea, è possibile che fosse la linea, perché vedevo che l'audio andava perfettamente. Sentivo anche il bot,
Aspetta, fammi parlare. Che connessione hai?
E chi sta parlando? No, ma la fibra non è quello che portava.
Non è un secondo, Ale.
No, adesso non vi vedo più.
Ale, sei un quinto e mezzo. Sei un quinto e mezzo dietro.
Comunque ragazzi, questo è quello che poteva essere il baby durante il lockdown se ne avessimo avuto un po'.
Ma te lo giuro, ma se io faccio un collegamento con Regino Comunitario dice a te, ma te lo giuro che va meglio, te lo giuro, ma pure su Strillo andrebbe meglio, a Capri no.
Vabbè, dai, andiamo via.
Fai la stampa dietro